Please join me in welcoming director Engeli Broberg. And Shine Global's co-founder and executive director, Susan MacLaury.
So let's begin with the subject of resilience. We've been talking about this for the last 3 days, as this is the award for children's resilience in film. And when you think about that term, what do you imagine? And how do you imagine your protagonist, Gabi, portraying it?
Yeah, when I think about resilience, I think about, to have the courage to be yourself, even though you're not like what's considered the norm. And this might look very different depending on where in the world you live, or who your family is, or what your society looks like. And I feel like Gabi's really showing that resilience of staying true to who she is and being herself.
She's very open about her struggle.
Yeah.
How did you first meet Gabi?
It was actually through a friend, because Gabi was an extra in a commercial that my friend was working on. And this friend was, she was like, "Oh, Engeli, you have to meet this child. It's a very, I know you like making documentaries, so maybe there's a story." And I was very skeptic, because everyone has a story that they're like, you have to meet my grandma or whatever. So I was like, but I went to meet Gabi and her mom, and we were going to meet up at a cafe. And when I got there, I was like, oh, I actually don't even know what these people look like. Like, I hope I'll find them. But as soon as Gabi walked in through the doors, I was like, well, this must be Gabi. It was like a child that didn't really look like a girl or a boy, like just with, tousled hair and a Star Wars sweater. And it was something about Gabi's energy that I was like, it seemed like a very interesting kid. And when we started to talk, it was like I was thrown back to, things that I thought about a lot when I was a kid. Like Gabi was talking about, like, oh, but what does it really mean to be a boy or a girl, and why do I only have to choose between these two boxes? But what I thought was so cool about Gabi, compared to myself when I was a child, was that Gabi could really articulate what she thought in a way that, both grown-ups and children could understand. And being so articulate, but still having the kind of child's point of view, I felt like a very fresh way of talking about these type of themes, and really highlighted how ridiculous a lot of our rules in our society in terms of genders and stuff is. So
and the limitations that they
exactly.
So she was 8 at the time that you met her.
Yeah,
it's really truly remarkable that she was able to articulate those kinds of questions. And it sounds as though there must have been something in what she sensed from you that made her feel comfortable to talk about that so openly.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we very much clicked immediately, which was really nice.
Was it easy to gain the family's trust? I'm sure it built over the years that you filmed her, but what's your sense of what might have encouraged the family to bring you into to their fold to tell the story?
I think in the beginning, I mean, we did spent a lot of time there. And in the beginning, we spent a lot of time without the camera to really get to know them. And then also, you know, when you say yes to a documentary, you don't really know what it is you're saying yes to. Right. And it was really important for me to try to explain that for the family. So we had sessions throughout the year where we looked at the material together, like some scenes, and that can be well, it's to show the people that you film, to show the material can make them very self-aware. So it was a little bit of a gamble to do that, but luckily they were all like very relaxed in front of the camera anyway. But we looked at the material together, and we were very transparent with everything we filmed, and I think that helped a lot, so that everyone knew that what we were making together.
Did she seem intrigued at all by what was being revealed?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the reaction was a little bit different depending on her age.
Yeah.
But she liked to see the scenes, and she thought it was very.
One of the things that struck me watching the film was that, you know, her questions about her sexual identity and her object choice, and is she a boy? Is she a girl? Is she? Would she define herself even somewhat, you know, differently than male or female? It also seemed like it was part of a larger question that she was asking herself about her identity, and of course her fascination about her father, and where was he, and who was he, and who was she in relation to her, to him? Excuse me. It's just, I guess, just an observation of mine.
Yeah, but I think, you know, you're definitely right about that. And I also think that sometimes she used, you know, when she felt like, okay, I feel different, but like, are these like traits that I got from my father? Like, if I knew who he was, would I feel less different from everyone else? I think that is a part, the whole like identity.
It's like a piece missing from the puzzle.
Yeah, exactly.
For her, yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say was the biggest single challenge that you had in making the film?
Well, there was two challenges. The one was, you know, when Gabi was 8, she was very like just open and talked about everything, and you know, an 8-year-old, you can't really like be like, okay, let's sit down now and have our first interview for 2 hours so I can get to know you.
Right,
like
right.
You have to like, whatever Gabi wants to do, that's what we're doing.
Right.
And then we had like small conversations whenever, you know, we had a chance, but it wasn't really like a interview. It was more like me and Gabi, we talked about whatever. I usually just asked something about school or how's football, and then because I was very careful with posing questions where Gabi started to feel like, oh, this is the material that Engeli wants. Like if I say these type of things about boys and girls, but Gabi always, like, even if we talked about school, she always kind of like steered the conversation into these things because that's what interested her. But when they moved, she started to close and, you know, didn't really want to talk as much. So I was like, okay, how can we get her to talk a little bit? And so then I had to like figure out like some kind of method. So I was like, oh, but let's just like sit here and draw and do crafts. And then all of a sudden, you know, she started to open up and we could talk. And then like some time later, it was more like, you know, Gabi comes to me and being like, oh, Engeli, I think it's time for us to sit down and draw. So she was inviting me to the conversation. So that was like, just because we were working for such a long time, I had to like, you know, change my methods. But the most challenging thing was the editing, because we had a lot of material and a lot of material where I was like, okay, this is probably a really good scene and something that you know, an audience would love, but I feel like this is a moment that me and Gabi had that should stay between the two of us, and it's not for the film. So making these decisions and like feeling, yeah, what is supposed to be in the film, and in the end, the answer was always like, okay, what's best for Gabi, and what, you know. But just before we locked the edit, I went to Dalarna, and Gabi got to see it, and then she got to come with her notes. Yeah, and she only had one, and it was a voiceover where she was like, yeah, but I think that this could be interpreted in a way that I don't want it to be interpreted. So then we changed that, but that was it.
Yeah.
So she's very proud of the film.
Oh, that says the, you know, it's such a fine balance for a documentarian, isn't it? Between when in those moments when you know you have material that is really compelling, and it might help the viewers of the film understand the subject so much better, but you're not sure, like you're saying, is this in her best interest? And I'm sure every filmmaker in this room can relate to what you just said. That's a tough choice to make. And let me go back again to when you first met her. What was her understanding of why you wanted to film her?
Yeah, she did really actually, her friend Henry asked early on, like, but why are we filming? And she did like explain to him very clearly, but in child's words, like, yeah, but you know, like I more so hang out with the boys, and but and I like football, but the boys are like, yeah, you can hang out with us because you're one of us, and you know, so like in children's words, she could explain the movie for him so that he understood it too.
So he was a willing collaborator.
Exactly, exactly.
Can you give us any updates on Gabi? How she and her family are doing now?
Yeah, she's 16 now. Yeah, and she got accepted to a school in Stockholm, so she has moved back to Stockholm and lives there. Her family is still in Dalarna. But she lives there, and she really likes it, and she hangs out with Henry a lot, and yeah, she really enjoys.
So it's a
school
boarding
there.
school that she's at?
No, it's a regular school, but she has her own apartment. But there are grown-ups that are friends of the family that lives close, so she's
every 16-year-old's dream.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just one last question, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. Who do you hope might be especially impacted by seeing Gabi?
Yeah, I mean, when I made the film, it was, you know, for Gabi or children or adults that have experienced similar things that Gabi is going through the film, and I wanted it to be a film where they could see themselves and feel seen, and hopefully feel a bit less lonely. But when I started to screen the film and travel with it, I got very surprised by the fact that almost everyone in the audience could see at least a little bit of themselves in Gabi. And but it has definitely been a film that has meant a lot for the queer community, and that has been really, really nice to experience all the conversations afterwards.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, Engeli, thank you so much. Let's open it up to the audience.
Hi.
Hey.
Well, first, I'll make the obvious comment. It was wonderful. I'm
you.
curious, there are two films that we've had here that have been made over a very long period of time. Just from a filmmaker's point of view, is that just a gamble, or do you develop an instinct that this is a story that's worth sticking with for a long time?
Well, this is my first feature-length documentary, so I guess everything was a little bit of a gamble. But I knew that I wanted to stay in the child's perspective. So that's why I knew that I wanted to stop when she was 13, because I feel like you kind of have a new kind of sense of eyes and the way that you look at the world. So that's why I wanted to stop there. But yeah, I mean, it could have happened that at 10, when she was 10, you know, everything is, the rest of the years wouldn't be so interesting, but we were lucky. And I knew that it was going to be an interesting story all the way, or I hoped at least.
Hi, Engeli. It's
Hey.
so cold today. But I wanted to thank you for making such a beautiful film. And I had two questions, though. So one, because we were talking with Jared yesterday, and because the intimacy of talking with the students and everything, at one point he said he had to sort of just let go of the crew because he needed it to be more intimate. And this was shot so beautifully as well, and it's also felt so intimate. So, like, how big was the crew that was shooting it? And then the second one is the letter that she wrote to Gabi wrote to herself at the end. Is like, how did she come up with that? Yeah.
Yeah, the crew was just me and the DP, and it was because I've worked with 3 different photographers, and when we first started, it was me and a guy who is very playful, and it was like just great to have him with Gabi at that age. You know, he came to set on his longboard, and you know, very much like, so that was really nice, and it worked out really fine. But then when Gabi moved, he got his first kid, and he couldn't be like traveling that much, so we had to change to another photographer, and it was this female photographer that that actually didn't really work out. I felt like Gab was closing up, and I think it was because we were 2 people with kind of the same, more like listening and calm energy, and she needed like someone who she could talk, you know, to football about, and then with me that she could talk about with feelings or something like that. So then I started working with this other person that also was like more like into sports and, you know, stuff like that. So she needed this kind of like balance to open up, and it was really interesting to learn that how important it is, you know, with like who is in your crew and the dynamic between everyone. And then for the letter, it was actually one of our crafts that we did. So I have a letter to future me also. I didn't dig it down though. But yeah, so we just, it was just one of the crafts that we did, and it ended up being in the film.
So amazing truths that you got at, so hard to get at, and such a skill, and so important. It's really an important film, and that's so hard to make. So congratulations on that. And but I'm curious, the parents. Mom doesn't want her to get her hair cut. The stepfather's kind of making fun of her from time to time. And you didn't really dive into that. I'm sure you shot some of it or whatever, but I'm curious about the choice of not including more of their perspective, or did Gabi talk about their perspective and how it affected her?
Yeah, I think what Gabi's experience with her parents is something that a lot of queer people can recognize from their, like, when they grew up. Parents who, I mean, they are caring and loving and supporting, but they do these kind of like mistakes that can be extremely like hurtful for a child and damaging. And Gabi was, she was like used to it more or less. She didn't make a big thing about it, but as you see in the footage, like it hurt. And And I think it's really interesting that you're mentioning the parents, because on different screenings that I've had like around the world, the reaction to the parents has been so different depending on where I've been. So for instance, on screenings in Italy, the parents have been like, oh, no, the audience has been like, oh, the parents are so accepting and so understanding. While in Denmark, they've been like, oh, those parents, I just want to strangle them, that they don't. So that's really interesting, like how one film can be so different depending on like what your country looks like and where you are. Yeah.
Hi. I just absolutely love the film. But one of the things I was wondering about was, since Gabi has so many questions about, like, particularly after she moved, trying to fit in, making friends, things of that nature. But there was a lot of shots where she was sort of off to the side and the children were sort of doing their own thing. How was it, I guess, when filming some of those crowd scenes with children, did having a camera crew there cause any problems with her feeling even more in the spotlight, or were the children sort of in the dark about like, oh, we're just filming? Like, were there any unintended consequences of like Gabi being photographed in front of people she's trying to become friends with?
Yeah, good question. Well, when we were very afraid of this, that that it would make her be like even more like different. So when we arrived to the school the first time, we were hanging out with the kids, introducing us, saying that we were there to film all of them. But we come from Stockholm and we filmed Gabi when she lived in Stockholm. But when we're in school, we focus on everyone, but it is a film that we're gonna make. I guess the first few minutes when we filmed, everyone was like looking into the lens and we couldn't use any of the material at all. But after a while, they forgot about us, and they, when we came to school, everyone was like, oh, hey, like our friends, the film team. So it didn't have any impact on, their relationship to Gabi, luckily. But I think it was because we, tried to deal with it immediately, so she wouldn't. But Gabi was really nervous, of course, the first day when we came filming, because it was going to be like a new thing. But after that first day, she was like, okay, it's cool. Yeah, we can continue.
I think we have time for just one or two more questions.
Thanks for making that film. It was wonderful to see another filmmaker struggle with the same years and same undeniable beauty. I was wondering, in Lift, I found myself sort of projected into these children myself. I'm wondering, observing Gabi, did that bring up things for you in your childhood in terms of just going through so many changes? And how did you use that maybe to structure your film, if that happened?
Yeah, but I definitely, saw my own childhood and Gabi's childhood, at least parts of it. And I think for me, it was the whole, because I'm a lesbian, and when I realized it as a child, it was the whole thing of like, trying to find out if you're going to be accepted and how to fit in. And I think that is something that, I don't think you have to be an LGBTQ person to identify with a lot of things in the film, because those years are very transformative no matter who you are. But and how I used it in the structure, you said? Or, well, I think the structure of the film, I knew I wanted it to be chronologically, and usually you can cheat a little bit when you're editing, because yeah, usually you can, but when it's kids, it's very hard since they grow so quickly. And also the hair, like, you really have to stay true to that. So I think those limitations also was something that really, well, helps us in the structure. But yeah.
Hello. I just had I'm doing 2 questions again. but just real quickly, I was wondering, I know that this film's over 5 years, and wondering if you planned it to be 5 years, or when you felt was a good, time to stop. If you're not just wondering, how you came up with the ending, and then also now, has Gabi identified with, and her gender or sexuality, or is she still, fluid or having a new category?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to stop somewhere around 13. And I felt like there around school graduation, felt like, okay, it's going to be some time there. But I was like struggling first to like find the ending, like where, because I could still be filming. I mean, still, it's things are happening, all the time. But when we shot that scene with the letter, that was supposed to be more of a conversation, but it turned into like this whole letter thing. I felt like I had find like the kind of framing of the film, and about how Gabi is identifying. For me, when it comes to the film, it was very important to make a film that did not come with an answer to what Gabi is, because I think it's important to leave that space for Gabi to develop in whoever she is, no matter what the film says. So it was important that there was an open ending to leave space for that. And Gabi is still exploring, and maybe one day she will find a label that she wants to call herself, or maybe she'll just forever be Gabi, and she's great whatever happens, right?